All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hokyoji's Sunday morning Dharma talk. And today I have the privilege of introducing, there he is, Reverend Genjo Sam Conway is a Zen priest in the lineage of Dainin Katagiri Roshi, ordained by his teacher Byakuren Judith Ragir Roshi. His practice stands at the confluence of Zen and psychoanalysis, where stillness in speech, emptiness in form reveal their shared demand for truth. A psychoanalyst by vocation, Reverend Genjo's work calls for an unflinching intimacy with the real, the courage to face what we most fear and what we most long for. His teaching joins the discipline of zazen with the fierce tenderness of inquiry, each a way of remembering what it means to be fully human. Rooted also in his Irish ancestry, he walks an ancient path honoring the old ways of land, weather, and kinship with all beings. This ancestral devotion infuses his Zen with earth and myth, wind and song, a reminder that awakening flower is not apart from the world, but intimately within it. All right. Thank you.
I'd like to change my setup slightly. Please bear with me. I would like you all closer. That's better. Well, good morning. Can you all hear me okay? In an evening talk, Zen Master Dogen said, "In the tradition of the patriarchs, the true way of understanding is to gradually reform what you have known and thought by following your teacher's instruction. Even if up to now you have a thought that a Buddha has excellent characteristics, like Shakyamuni or Amitabha, radiates a halo, has the virtue of preaching the Dharma and benefiting living beings, you should believe your teacher if he or she says that the Buddha is nothing but a toad or an earthworm. However, if you look for some excellent characteristics, a halo, or other virtues of a Buddha on the toad or the earthworm, you have still not reformed your discriminating mind. Just understand that what you see right now is Buddha." I'm going to do one other thing on here. I want you all to be larger. Yeah. I want you closer. I want you larger. I'm about to give this whole talk about not practicing with gaining mind. And the very first things that I begin with are things that I want. Perfect. So I want to focus on this toad and this earthworm. And I'll just read that little part again. However, if you look for some excellent characteristics, a halo or other virtues of a Buddha on the toad or the earthworm, you have still not reformed your discriminating mind. Just understand what you see right now is Buddha. So this text is from the Shobogenzo Zuimanki, which was a collection of sayings and partial talk, what would you say, recordings that Koan Ejo made. Koan Ejo was one of Dogen's main students. He became the second abbot of Eiheiji, one of our head temples. And he made it after Dogen's death. So this was a fairly common thing to do at the time. Collected sayings of X teacher or collected sayings of this monk were fairly popular literary forms, both in China and in Japan. So I think there's something quite sweet about him speaking about the teacher-student relationship here. This was his teacher when he writes this. So when he says, if your teacher excuse me, that's not how he says it. You should believe your teacher if he says that Buddha is nothing but a toad or an earthworm. There's kind of two teachers that Dogen could be referring to here. And one is the teacher that is in our lineage, a guy named Tiantong Ru Jing, who was a Chinese teacher that Dogen went to China to study with. He could also be talking about his teacher Myozen, who was a Japanese priest that Dogen went to China with to try and study Zen. You could also be talking about any of the other 80, in my case, 5 teachers in the lineage, from Shakyamuni Buddha down to the monk he's speaking to. You could also be talking about Upagupta, because later in the same little talk, he talks about something that you might have heard about. It's called a 100-foot pole. We'll get to that later, maybe. And he gives us a very challenging teaching here. A lot of us have heard this, that Buddha is everywhere, or Buddha is the everywhere in some ways. Whatever you see is Buddha, he says quite clearly. We've also heard this in the sayings of Master Joshu. When asked what is Buddha nature, will say kooky things like a jelly donut, or a dried shit stick, or the oak tree in the garden. And this is one way of directly expressing, I'm not even going to explain it. I'm just going to say that, in this moment, directly, Buddha. However, Dogen's giving us something a little bit more here. It's not the things we view in the present moment are Buddha because they're wonderful, or because we enjoy them, or because there's something, quote, good about them. That's looking for a halo or an excellent characteristic on the worm or the toad. We all do this, right? We have this thought, oh, somebody says something bad about themselves. I'm going to say, no, you're good, as a way of trying to make them feel better. Or when we're in a bad situation, one we don't like, we try and see the good in it. What's that phrase? The only thing you can change is your attitude, something like that. We try and make lemonade from lemons. A lot. We don't even notice how much we do this. And oftentimes we think of that as what it means to free living beings, or to save living beings, as our bodhisattva work. I'm going to help you see how great you are. I'm going to help me see how great I am. Ooh. And what Dogen says to us here very, very, very clearly, I think, is that's not it. That's gaining mind. If you can only see the toad or the earthworm as Buddha, if you see all of their wonderful things, all of their amazing qualities, which they have, let's be honest. Earthworms can do amazing things. Toads are pretty spectacular in a lot of ways. Their Buddha nature is not dependent on this. Their Buddha nature has nothing to do with how well we think they are, or how good we think they are, or, my God, much less how useful we think they are. One of the absolute worst things I think we can think about a living being is that it's useful, or worthwhile, or, oh, you have a lot of value. We have fallen directly into the trap in that moment of both gaining mind and, I would suggest, of capitalism. So, what is this gaining mind? In an earlier text, the Gakudo Yo Jinshu points to watch and practicing the way. Dogen devotes a section to this gaining mind. That's the mind that makes us want to look for something better in the toad or the earthworm. That's the mind that is never satisfied. Now, well, I have a point to make about that, but I'll save it till after I've read some of this. The Yojinshu was written in about 1233, excuse me, 1234. It was written directly after he founded Koshoji. So this is his first temple that he founded. He is here, Dogen. He was very involved in training new monks and very involved in sort of getting the teaching out. He had recently come back from China. I think he was, let me see, this would be 6 years later. He's come back from China that he writes this book. And most of the things that we have from Dogen are not books as we think of it. They're later compilations, they're things that students put together. This was sort of a bit of a manual of here's how you should do this practice, as far as I'm concerned. At this time, and he changes his mind later, oftentimes several times. So he begins by saying, it is important to receive instruction from a teacher when practicing the Buddha Dharma. Never use your own ideas as a basis. The Buddha mind cannot be attained with mind or with no mind. And here in the Japanese, the word is u and mu. So in English, we have to do kind of a crappy thing, which is add this no to the beginning of words. Many words in both Japanese and Chinese have their own negative as a different word. And in this case, being, or mind in this case, is u, just a u. And no mind or non-being is mu, mu. So it's not a negation of it, it's just a different thing. And this is, I think, important for how we're thinking about this. So the Buddha way and the Dharma cannot be attained with mind or with no mind. If your aspiration to practice is not in accordance with the way, your body and mind will never be resting in peace. If body and mind are not peaceful, body and mind cannot be at ease. If body and mind are not at ease, thorns grow on the path of realization. How should you base your practice on the unification of your aspiration to practice and the way? You should refrain from clinging to anything or rejecting anything, and free yourself from desire for fame and profit. Do not practice the Buddha Dharma in order to gain a good reputation. The mental attitude of people today, even among those who practice the Buddha Dharma, is extremely far from the way. If practitioners are encouraged to practice something, they do so in spite of knowing it is contrary to the way. If no one respects or flatters them, they neglect practice, even though they know it is in accordance with the true way. How shameful they are! Calm your mind and observe. Can we call this sort of psychology the Buddha Dharma? Oh, I'd like to stop there for a moment because he answers that question, but I'm sort of interested in what you all think about this. And I should say, this is how I read this as an English speaker reading an English translation of this Japanese text. I don't know if this is the correct way to hear this phrase, but here's how I hear this. He's already said what's shameful, and he moves on to this new paragraph and says, calm your mind and observe. I think he's referring to that when he says, can we call this sort of psychology the Buddha Dharma? Can we? We think and we teach a lot that calming your mind and observing is what our practice is. But he seems to say here, can we call this sort of psychology? I'm thinking that means like a dirty word here too. Like, can we call this sort of psychology the Buddha Dharma? Well, he doesn't think so. He says, shame on you, shame on you. The eye of the Buddha is watching you. So, what does this mean? Yeah, it's pretty helpful to calm down sometimes. We spend a lot of our time really revved up. But we should not think that calmness, serenity, peacefulness are equivalents to zazen. We should not think that these states are the true way. The true way is my back hurts, my back is better, my head hurts, I have so much to do, I have nothing to do. Oh, I have so much to do and nothing to do at the same time. I neither have anything to do nor nothing to do at the same time, too. Our practice is completely moving around on those nodes of a diamond. No one of them is the Dharma. No view or its opposite or some sort of synthesis or some sort of negation is the Dharma in itself. In the same way, no you, Y-O-U, not U like in Japanese. No you is Buddha. However, the complete interpenetration of all beings in time and places together is Buddha. So you are it. Or we could say, you are not it, but in truth, it is you. Never use your own ideas as a basis, he says. In a different section in the Shobogenzo Sui Monkey, from the one I just read, Dogen says, in the tradition of ancestors, the true way of understanding Dharma is to gradually reform what you have known and thought by following your teacher's instruction. So the footnote to this little section in the Yakudo is the exact section I was just reading from the Suimonki. I don't know. Actually, that would be a good enough Dharma talk right there. If I just said, I don't know and left it at that. But I will go on. I don't know if what he means by reform here is the same thing that I hear when I hear the word reform, which I think means to change, which I think means to get better. I don't know if the word in Japanese has the same connotations in English of like reformatory or reform school, or after a time in prison, have you reformed yourself? I tend to think not, because if Dogen can, in my view, be said to have a overriding teaching, an overriding theme, it is that rank and stepladder Zen is not it. This is quite different from most other Zen teachers of the time, and is even different from teachers in our lineage. One of the most famous ranking systems of early Chinese Zen is the five ranks, which was a system of thinking about enlightenment as stages that you get through. That was, well, I'll say made up by our ancestor Dongshan. And Dogen says, that ain't it. Why is that not it? Because in every moment, regardless of if you find yourself in the position of earthworm or in the position of the great Dharma kings, you can drop away body and mind, go beyond Buddha, manifest the original face, and experience and transmit unsurpassed complete perfect enlightenment. You can't do it in the next moment, and you can't do it in the previous moment. You can't do it by being somebody else, and you sure as hell can't do it by being somebody better. Like if you wait around until you're a better person to drop away body and mind, It's not going to happen. You're not going to do it. And also, that person is fake. You made them up. Now, just because that person is fake and you made them up, this does not mean that they are not a living being and not deserving of receiving the same freedom and salvation that our vows make to all beings. Please, these fake people that you have made up in your head, work to free them too. But this stepladdering, this trying to get better, we would say now self-help in our communities maybe, is a historical dynamic for Dogen as well. So at the time, and this is still true, we just don't have this in this country that much. The main forms of Buddhism in Japan that were developing were called Old Buddhism and New Buddhism. Old Buddhism would be Tendai, Shingon, etc., etc. New Buddhism would be the Zen, would be Jodo Shinshu, Nichiren, etc. So the basic way that this plays out is Old Buddhism is about very elaborate rites and extreme scholarship of hundreds of sutras. New Buddhism is about anybody can do it and you can do it right now. That's a very simplified version of it, but that's kind of the way it breaks down. Most of the other schools, including, to my understanding, the Rinzai school in Japan at the time, taught that we lived in the, and I always forget how to say this because I always think of the tofu dish. So if I'm wrong, please somebody correct me. The Mappo era. And in this thinking, the time from the Buddha's death until 500 years later is the age of the true Dharma. And this is when Dharma teaching flourishes, beings are awoken, all things are manifesting and able to manifest the Dharma. And then there's 500 years of the age of the imitation Dharma, when there's teaching, but there's not really a lot of waking up. And there are Buddhas, but there's really living beings. And that distinction is pretty important in the way that this teaching works. And then there's the age of the degenerate Dharma, which is our age, which frankly I think I would prefer to live in, just in terms of what sounds interesting to me. But this is the age when you cannot wake up. You cannot achieve Buddhahood. You cannot enter enlightenment. Things are just too hard. Things are too bad. And Dogen spends a lot of his career, in my view, working against this view. He says that is not the case. He does not believe in this structure. Because what that structure means is what you have to do is practice really hard in this life so you can be reborn in a better place. And in that better place, you can finally become Buddha. And Dogen criticizes this for two reasons. One, what better place than this is there? Not that this place is perfect. This place is still the toad and the earthworm. But show me where it is better, where you're more able to wake up, where there's more beings at hand for you to help out and do good for, which is the basis of our practice, he will go on to say. And because what this means is, if this is true, that we build up this merit to get to a better place, then Bodhidharma's basic teaching is not true. And Bodhidharma's basic teaching is when asked, hey, I did all this good stuff. I've done all this wonderful stuff. What merit do I get for this? What's my reward? Bodhidharma says, nothing. So this is critically important for us. How often do we sit down on the cushion and think, man, I hope this is going to make me feel better? Or at the very least, I hope this is not going to make me feel worse. That particularly for me comes up in sesshin, where I'll sit down and be like, oh my God, I'm so sick of this right now. I hope this period just like goes okay. You know, that's gaining mind. That's step laddery mind. And this is quite important. Step laddery mind, gaining mind are not bad. It's even another example of gaining mind to desire getting rid of gaining mind. This is part of what it means to be human. This is part of what it means to live as people. And so we can also say very clearly that Buddha mind is everyday mind. I don't know how to make a distinction between everyday mind and gaining mind. I wish I could, but that's because I want to gain something. So the Buddha Dharma cannot be attained with mind or with no mind. I don't know what we should think about this attained word in there. Very strictly speaking, one cannot and one does not attain the Buddha way. One does not achieve enlightenment. These are stepladder words. These are stepladder notions. And if one can attain the way, in the next moment, one can not attain the way again. There's nothing permanent, there's nothing fixed that is going on there. And I also wonder if someone can attain the way, if they can retain the way, or detain the way, or maintain the way. These are all other tain words that we should maybe pay attention to, and particularly detain. In this age of secret police, it is worth paying attention to how much we also have a desire to detain the Dharma. Menzan, who was a 19th century reviver of Dogen, whom I love, but was kind of controversial. He said, ordinary people practice with mind, Ushin, while the practitioners of the two vehicles, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, or non-Buddhists, all practice with no mind, Mushin. The Buddha way is beyond being and non-being, U and Mu, and can never be attained that way. So sitting on your cushion, experiencing silence, entering into the non-constructed reality of all things, I have bad news. That's not it. That's just not enlightenment. Walking down the street, thinking about your grocery list, is exactly the same. One is just mind, the other is no mind. Neither of these things can ever be used to attain the Buddha way. What does this mean? If we separate mind from no mind, if we separate good and bad, if we separate mine, not mine, which we have a basic consciousness called the manas consciousness that is designed to do, if we do those things and cling to them, we are as far away from the way as heaven is from earth. So, sounds like a pretty dire situation. Nothing you can do. Well, that's where the good news comes in. In Each Moment is the Universe, Katagiri Roshi says, there are times in your life when you arrive at what he calls the terminal position, meaning you've painted yourself into a corner, you've been shoved into a cage, you have nowhere to go, no help, and no hope. And he says, in that moment, zazen naturally arises. So he clearly doesn't mean there that we're sitting down and doing zazen by saying this. When the natural arising of zazen occurs, it's not because we all of a sudden just sit down in the lotus position with an upright back. What is this zazen he refers to? And more so, we can push that further by bringing Dogen back in. And remembering that in the Fukan Zazengi, he says, the zazen I speak of is not meditation practice. We glide by this phrase without giving it much attention, I think, most of the time. Partially because it would destroy a lot of the gaining mind that we have about what we're supposed to do as good Zen people. Please don't be a good Zen person. Just be a Zen person if you want to be a Zen person. Leave the good aside. The zazen I speak of is not meditation practice means even the form of zazen, sitting in the lotus position, is not limiting to zazen. How could it be limited to sitting or lying down? Dogen says. Our zazen practice is not something that is bound by the posture, by the zendo, by the temple, by the robes. It's not bound by anything. What it's bound by is our discriminating mind. Our discriminating mind is nothing other than Buddha being Buddha. If this were different, there would be somewhere that you could look and say, look, that's not Buddha. And somewhere else you could look and say, look, that's Buddha. You can't do this. The best you can do in the image of Dongshan is a student asked him, what's the secret meaning of the Buddha's Dharma? And Dongshan said, I can't tell you right now. There's a lot of people around. Ask me later. Which I think he's just playing on the word secret there and wanting to give the student like what they asked for. Like, oh, it's a secret. Okay, let's make it a secret. And the student finds him later and he says, so what's the secret meaning of the Buddha Dharma? And Dongshan says, come with me to the garden. They go to the garden. And Dongshan says, look how tall that bamboo is. Look how short that bamboo is. This is our zazen practice. Dongshan himself, we should remember, woke up, entered realization by hearing either a piece of tile or a stone hit a chunk of bamboo and make a sound. This was his wake up. Not sitting on the cushion, involved in some sort of cosmic state. Not sitting long hours of meditation in a cave. Incidentally, we don't actually really know what Bodhidharma was doing in that cave for 9 years. We know he was sitting in there. He could have been doing a lot of stuff. And I don't know how much of the stuff he was up to we, as 21st century residents of Minnesota, would look at and say, oh, that was zazen. I don't know how much one of my heroes, Ryokan, a hermit, poet, monk from 19th century Japan, I think. I don't know how much zazen, in the sense of sitting on a cushion upright, he did. He played with kids a lot. He wrote a lot of poems. Actually, forget that. He played with kids a lot. A lot of what he did seems to be going down into town, begging, and then as soon as he had enough money, he would go and play with children. And not because it was for their own good or because he was doing some sort of daycare service, because he really enjoyed playing with children. And not just playing with children as an adult plays with a child, but playing with children as in fully entering into the play. No distinction between the play and the player. This is extraordinarily difficult for us to practice. This is extraordinarily difficult for us to receive. This is extraordinarily difficult for us to transmit. In another place in the Zuimonki, Dogen says, regarding both actions and speech in society, in this country today, many people are concerned with personal fame and reputation. They are concerned with good and with bad, with right and with wrong. They consider that if they do one thing, other people will think well of them. Or if they do something else, others will think poorly of them. And then the line I love, they even worry about the future. I'm so glad that we have this opportunity to worry about the future, this human life. I'm so glad we have this opportunity to fret and be despondent and regret the past. I'm so glad we have this opportunity to experience anger and greed and delusion. There is no human life outside of these things. There is no Buddha outside of these things. There cannot be. We would love for there to be. We would love for there to be a way that there are good guys and bad guys. I'm on the good guys' side, and the bad guys are, maybe in our view, gonna melt into flowers or some shit. But that's not the case. That's not the world. There are not good guys. There are not bad guys. Every one of us completely right now has the capacity in them to be a slaveholder, to be a Nazi, to be an ICE agent, to be a murderer, whatever it is. There is no difference between your capacity for that and their capacity for that. But also, each one of us has the capacity to be Mother Teresa or to be whoever that person in your memory that like was just really helpful for no reason. You know that one story that we all have, like out of nowhere this person showed up and helped me. We all have that capacity too. So much of what we experience as good and bad is simply the activation of a specific capacity. And that has nothing to do with us. That only has to do with our karma. The only reason that I'm sitting here trying to not be a fascist asshole is because of my karma. It has nothing to do with me. It's not an achievement, and it's nothing I can hold on to. It doesn't make me good. It doesn't make me virtuous. It doesn't make me anything other than a product of causes and conditions. If I'm a good priest, it's because of karma and causes and conditions. If I am a good therapist, it's because of karma and causes and conditions. If I'm a good dad, same. However, we are taught, again by Dogen, when I'm a bad priest, own that, confess that, and make amends. When I'm a bad therapist, own that, confess that, make amends. There is good and bad. There is right and wrong. There is all of the things I just said that there aren't. There also are. Yes, there are. Depending on if you're coming at it from the mu side or the u side. If you're coming at it from being, yeah, good and bad, right and wrong, left and right. Coming at it from non-being, no. No good and bad, no left and right, no evil or whatever. But neither one of those two positions, u or mu, are the Buddha way. The Buddha way is the infinite functioning and intimate functioning of the two of them forever and ever until they stop. I was going to do one more section, but I'm not going to now. Instead, I wrote a poem as a capping verse for this talk, which is, my grandfather taught me to dig worms for bait. 20 years after he's gone, here I am still fishing. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your talk, Genjo. We'd like to open it up now to discussion, questions, comments.
Can I ask, why do we attribute our achievements to karmic conditions or causes and conditions, but our failures we own? Why not treat them the same?
Well, because when we experience that distinction between good and bad things that I've done, we're coming from ooh at that point. And at that point, we've already given ourselves enough credit for the good things that we've done, just by saying that these are good things. So the balancing act at that point is to say, oh, actually, those things are not me. Those things are because of whoever it is that built those roads that got me here, or whoever it is that made these shoes that got me here. I mean that literally as well as metaphorically. When we're coming from Mu, where there is no good and there is no bad, we can get really zoned out and act like this is the best thing and this is where we're supposed to be. And the best medicine for this is to come back and say, oh, I've made some mistakes and I would like to apologize for them. It takes the uh, what pompousness out of the feeling of having entered into Mu, which can have a very arrogant flavor to it. So this is my view of why. Is that good or is that no good?
No, I like that. I like it. You're saying that it has a kind of balance, that we have this uh, bias in ourselves to build ourselves up, and this is a way of correcting that, or being balanced in the midst of this ooh and this moo, this um, being and non-being. I always think of um, in the Platform Sutra where Huining says um, that my practice is to see my own faults but not see anyone else's faults. It's I know this is a little different, but um, there's some kind of balance there. Actually, if we put all the weight on one side, we put all the weight of judgment on one side, we're still not balanced, because we have so much ego, so much um, pride, even if it's reverse pride.
Oh, I like this. Will you say more about reverse pride, please?
Well, there's a kind of I'm incapable, or I'm worthless, or there's no way I could ever do this. That's a kind of pride too. It's a kind of self-centeredness. That,
Somewhere Reb Tenshin Roshi talks about we all have this really basic thing of thinking that there's I'm gonna do it like this, of thinking that there's this circle. This is life, the universe, and everything. And then there's this little blip, and that's me. So it's like the entire universe is one thing, and then there's me over here. And this leads to a lot of one, weird ego formations, and two, look at how good I am at achieving the Buddha way. We're never going to get away from that, by the way. Like we will always have a little bit of pride at achieving the Buddha way, whatever that means. That's also just a moment of ooh. Frustration at not being able to calm my mind the fuck down by the third day or fourth day of session is also just a moment of ooh. It doesn't mean that mu is better in that moment. It doesn't mean that the earthworm has to have a halo for it to be Buddha. The, maybe we can even say that mouse that you saw in your kitchen the other day, or the mosquito that bites you and gets away with it, like you don't even get the slap. These are also Buddha without any sort of, oh, the mosquito plays a vital role in the ecosystem, and if it wasn't for the mosquito, there wouldn't be blah, blah. No, all you're doing there is making the mosquito into something it's not. Things as they are not Buddha. That's mu. Things as they are not Buddha. That's u. Things as they both are and are not simultaneously, and are neither as they are, or nor are they aren't. Or however grammatically you say that. This is closer. This is 80 to 90, 80 or 90% of what it means to approach Buddha nature.
So it wouldn't do to just put a halo on all the worms.
No, that's where I started. That's what he says.
Yeah.
If you look for some excellent characteristics, a halo or other virtues of a Buddha on the toad or the earthworm, you have not reformed your discriminating mind. Another way to think of that is if you think that that terrible person is only Buddha because you can think of good things about them, you are far away from the way. Their Buddha nature is not dependent on your opinions. And it gets worse, even if you're right.
To kind of follow up with Musho's balancing,
David.
where does the middle way fall into that, Genjo?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, you opened me up into a whole thing. So the middle way actually comes from a slightly different philosophical theoretical tradition than what this is coming from. That doesn't mean that they don't play together. But it is a little weird to try and put them together. And I think a good way to think of it is that if mu is one particle, like is one, uh, what do they say in geometry? Point. If I think I said mu, but let me say if u is one point on a graph with infinite space to the up and down and to the left and right, and somewhere else randomly on the graph there's mu, and all it is a point. Buddha nature and the middle way are both everything that is both in between them and everywhere else around them. So middle only in the sense of not bounded by nor idealized by either extreme. And like the classical description of the Buddha way, or the middle way is on a lyre. that if you tune it too tightly, it's out of tune. If you tune it not tightly enough, it's out of tune. I'm interested in the middle way of Musho here, who we have two Mushos. Maybe we have Musho and Usho, actually, right now. Um, so I think that middle in that sense is not exactly the fullness of the teaching. And so the fullness of the teaching is in the Zen school, my view, middle way becomes the no of the Heart Sutra. No, no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue. It doesn't mean that you don't have one. It just means that it's not bounded by tongue or not tongue. It means that it's not bounded by mu show or u show. And Katagiri Roshi at one point said that a Zen no, speaking of the Heart Sutra, the no's in there, a Zen no doesn't mean no. It means freedom. So it's freedom from nose, freedom from eyes, freedom from ears. And how do we get this freedom from? Only freedom through, by completely experiencing eyes, ears, nose, tongue, etc. And that constant back and forth, that constant interplay, my view, is the middle way. Is that good? Does that work? Well, if nobody else has questions, I will leave you with one last poem from Ryokan, which is, my poems are not poems. As soon as you understand that my poems are not poems, we can talk about poetry. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Genjo. Let's see what we have coming up. Next weekend, Associate Teacher Reverend Kado Jeremy Thotlin will be our speaker. On the calendar in June, we have Associate Teacher G.D. Kennedy's Practicing the Way retreat is June 17th through the 21st. I am hosting a retreat June 25th through 28th, which is more of a get acquainted with meditation and Hokyoji. It's called Reboot Summer Camp. And then we will have in August Jewel Mirror Session with guiding teacher Dokai Georgeson, Daigaku Rume from Confluence Zen Center, and Rayron Gumbel from Milwaukee Zen Center. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, please sign up. Additionally, we are in the middle of our spring appeal. So if you feel so moved, please go to the website and donate. And yeah, that's about it then. Everyone have a great day. We're going to close with the 4 vows. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. All right, everyone have a good day. Thank you again, Genjo.